the President of the United States.
State of the Union. President Trump prepares his address to the nation. We'll preview the speech and its impact on a divided Congress. Pro-life setback. The Senate fails to pass a bill banning abortions after 20 weeks of pregnancy. Church relations in China. The Vatican speaks out about negotiations between the Holy See and the Asian superpower. And trumping Valentine's Day. Ash Wednesday and a popular American holiday collide. On EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, January 30th, 2018. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. The top story tonight, President Trump will strike a bright and optimistic tone in his first State of the Union address. In a lunch previewing the address at the White House, the president told me and other network news anchors, quote, "I want to bring our country back from a tremendous divisiveness. I would love to be able to bring our country into a great form of unity." The White House says the speech will be bipartisan and will be forward-looking. It will touch on immigration, the economy, infrastructure, trade, and national security. We have team coverage tonight before tonight's address to the nation, and we will start at the White House, where the president has been preparing. White House correspondent Mark Irons has more. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Lauren. Expect the president to list his economic achievements tonight, but steer clear of the ongoing investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election. A White House official tells me immigration will be a key focus.
And it should not be a small matter to the United States Congress.
Wherever and whenever I can take steps without legislation to expand opportunity for more American families, that's what I'm going to do.
America must put its own citizens first, because only then can we truly make America great again.
It's traditionally a president's biggest platform to speak to the nation and share their accomplishments from the past year. Trump will argue his policies are a major reason for the strong economy and low unemployment. He'll make the case for a major overhaul of America's roads and bridges, an issue that will likely bring more unity than others.
Immigration has always been a contentious issue.
Helen Foray, the White House Director of Media Affairs, tells me the president's push for immigration reform will be an important part of his speech.
It's a major issue that we put a great proposal on the table where it's really the middle ground.
The White House demands $25 billion for the U.S.-Mexico border wall in exchange for a pathway to citizenship for 1.8 million undocumented immigrants known as Dreamers. Democrats invited some of those Dreamers to be in attendance tonight. Among the president's invited guests, an immigration enforcement officer and the parents of 2 children killed by members of the international criminal gang MS-13.
They're people, they're valid, they have stories to tell, and it also points to the fact that we need to be very careful about immigration and border security, and transnational crime is an important issue.
But don't expect President Trump to wade into the federal investigation into possible collusion between his campaign and Russia. He has called it a witch hunt.
I think polls show that American people don't really care about those types of stories.
Foray tells me the domestic battle to fight the opioid crisis and U.S. military success in combating ISIS will also be highlighted in the president's address. Lauren?
Mark, do you have any details about how the president has been preparing for his first State of the Union?
One White House official tells me the president has spent the day reviewing and tweaking his speech to make sure it sounds just the way he wants it to.
Okay. White House correspondent Mark Irons reporting. Thank you, Mark. Speaker Ryan has invited a Catholic nurse forced to take part in an abortion as his guest to the State of the Union. Speaker Ryan calls Kathy DiCarlo a fighter for faith in the unborn. She joins me now with her lawyer, Kelly Fedorik. She's with Alliance Defending Freedom. Welcome, ladies. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Let's start with your story. First, you were forced to assist in a late-term abortion, and the hospital said, if you don't, what?
They told me that they would terminate me and that I would be fired from my job.
And so you did it?
I had to do it because they deceived me in telling me that it was an emergency, only to find out that it was not. And when I went to the union representatives, management, and top-level doctors in the hospital, no one was listening to me. In fact, they told me that I would have to assist in abortions from now on, and that this was the new normal for nurses in healthcare.
Now, the President of the United States last month, or earlier this month, I believe, opened a new office in the Civil Rights Division so that people like you, doctors and nurses like you, will not have to do this. What do you think about that?
I appreciate it greatly because it took 3 years for the HHS to investigate my case. Imagine 3 years waiting. It was unreal, and the things that I had to go through, I had to stand up and show that it's wrong for people to choose between their job and their conscience. It's not American. So I appreciate that conscience protection is being given a spotlight by the government, by House Speaker Ryan, because this is not just a Republican issue. This is a bipartisan issue. No American should be forced to assist in an abortion if they don't believe in it.
Do you believe, Kelly, as her lawyer, as a lawyer representing people like Kathy, that this issue is getting the needed attention?
It certainly seems they're making a step in the right direction. We're thrilled to see the recent HHS actions in creating this new division and really ensuring that the agency is complying with longstanding federal conscience protections so that no healthcare professionals, including Kathy, will ever be forced to violate their conscience.
Kathy, are you nervous?
I am.
You're going to be in the big spotlight tonight with Speaker Ryan.
I am thrilled and excited, but I'm also glad that I'm there because I can now tell other healthcare workers like me, don't be afraid. You don't have to be afraid in America to stand up for your rights because it is the right of everyone to not to have to choose between their job and their conscience. That's not the America I immigrated to.
Kathy DiCarlo, a nurse, and thank you so much, Kelly Fedoruk, her lawyer at Alliance Defending Freedom.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you.
Now we go to Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi, who has more on the speech from just outside of the House chamber. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. I'm inside Statuary Hall right now, just hundreds of feet away from the House floor, where President Donald Trump will deliver his first State of the Union address. And it's right here inside Statuary Hall, where camera crews from around the world are gathering, filling this space that's filled with statues. That's where it gets its name, Statuary Hall. There's one in particular I want to show off to you, just 2 spots away from where we're standing right now. And it's Saint Junipero Serra, who was named a saint, as you remember, by Pope Francis back in 2015, right here in Washington, D.C. And just 100 feet away from the statue, President Trump speaks. And each rank-and-file lawmaker gets to invite one guest to the State of the Union. Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi and more than a dozen other lawmakers are hosting Dreamers, immigrants brought to the country illegally as children. And today I met one of them.
I get to be a voice for all these dreamers across this nation who are fighting for their lives, fighting for their education, fighting for the future. So I think it's really important that I'm here, that I get to speak for everyone. So I hope that Congress can also pass legislation to protect us, to protect our future, our families that are all over here, our roots that are here.
Now, other lawmakers will be dressed in black in honor of victims of sexual assault in Hollywood, Congress, and the media. Now, several Democrats like Florida's Frederica Wilson will be skipping the speech. She says to attend it is to honor the president, and she says he doesn't deserve that. Now, President Trump will host the parents, as Mark just mentioned, of 2 teens killed by MS-13 gang members. Also filling the First Lady's box, a California wildfire firefighter, the Cajun Navy founder who helped rescue victims of Hurricane Harvey, and a Marine who re-enlisted after losing his legs and his sight. Lauren?
A double amputee, incredible. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi. Thank you, Jason. Joining us now is Representative Henry Cuellar, a Democrat from Texas. Welcome back to the program, sir.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here with you.
No matter what the president says tonight, is there enough trust for Democrats to work with the president? Some Democrats, including John Lewis of Georgia, say they won't even attend the speech.
Well, you know, again, I'm one of those persons that I think we need to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I want to see what sort of tone, what sort of words he's going to use today. And hopefully, especially now that we got such a divided Congress and a divided country, I hope that the president can bring some words that will go and aim at bringing unity to Congress and the country. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but let's see what happens later on today.
The president's latest immigration bill sets a path for citizenship for dreamers, calls for stricter rules for legal immigration, and a $25 billion border wall. Can you support that deal?
No, we can negotiate with them, but there's no way I'm going to agree to a $25 billion wall. There's just absolutely no way. I want to see security, but when you're taking money away from aircraft or interceptor boats or K-9s or CBP officers to address border security, the traditional methods that work, then we're not really looking at border security. We're just going on a false symbol, which is called the 14th century solution called the wall.
You know, Democrats played the shutdown card last time around. So do you have leverage this time to do that negotiation?
I have to say the Republicans were wrong in 2013 to shut down the government over health care. I think the Democrats, some of my colleagues, without due respect, were wrong on closing it down for this immigration issue. What's the next hot issue coming up next session? So one, we got to make sure we keep the government open. Then we got to work on negotiations. There's other ways of getting leverage. But again, to shut down the government, that's a no-winner for everybody.
You live in Laredo, Texas, along the Mexican border. You're a Catholic lawmaker. Your father became a naturalized citizen. And as you've told me before, it took a long time for that to happen. How does your personal experience influence your stand on immigration policy?
I live in the border. I don't want to see open borders. I want to see a secure border. And again, I've saw my father become a legal resident, then, of course, a naturalized citizen. The system to allow people that are coming in the right way takes a long time. So we got to look at the immigration system. But to say cut off anybody that comes in that doesn't have the education or doesn't have that, I mean, we still need people that have to work in the ag areas or other areas. My father just got a few years of education, but he worked in the agricultural area. And I think even President Trump's father, who came in from, grandfather came in from Germany, I think he was a plumber. So if you say that only PhDs like myself can come into the United States, that type of merit system, I think that's wrong. We got to look at what are the needs of the United States and make the system more efficient to work. But we do not want to have open borders.
Representative Henry Cuellar, thank you so much for joining us, a Democrat from Texas.
Thank you so much.
President Trump is expected to spend a lot of time tonight talking about top national security issues, and that includes a plan to increase the military's budget as part of a major build-out. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsbee has more from the Pentagon. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. Tonight, the president is expected to propose a defense spending budget of $716 billion. That's more than 7%, up more than 7% from the proposed budget last year, which was also a jump in defense spending. The president and the defense secretary both say it's needed to rebuild a depleted military. From confronting threats posed by North Korea and terrorist groups like ISIS to defining which nations are our friends or our adversaries, the president will hit on a range of key global security topics during tonight's State of the Union. During a visit to the Pentagon 2 weeks ago, he hinted at his plan for a military buildup.
Our military has to be the best in the world by far. And as you know, it's been depleted over the last long period of time. And when we finish, there won't be anything like it.
Some see the budget increase as a victory for Defense Secretary James Mattis, who recently unveiled a new strategy that retools the military from counterterrorism to a potential conflict with major powers like China and Russia.
As hard as the last 16 years have been on our military, no enemy in the field has done more to harm the readiness of the U.S. military than the combined impact of the Budget Control Act's defense spending cuts.
Philip Lohaus, a former Defense Department analyst in Washington, agrees.
When we say readiness, we mean training, we mean preparedness to actually go into combat, things like that. There's a lot of funding for those kinds of activities was decreased. That has led to a number of unfortunate circumstances, such as the Navy sailors that were killed off the coast of Japan due to training and leadership.
But Lohaus warns that tonight we will only be hearing the president's proposals.
This is kind of what he says he wants, and then it's going to be debated by Congress, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities for input. But I will say that I think it's a very bold first statement. He's really kind of putting his money where his mouth is.
On the topic of bold proposals, the president will also likely mention his administration's plan to resume accepting refugees from 11 countries deemed high risk, but applicants from those nations will have to go through potentially tougher screening procedures to weed out extremists and criminals. Lauren?
Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby reporting from the Pentagon. Thank you, Wyatt. We will continue our State of the Union coverage coming up, and tonight we'll provide live coverage on our Facebook page. Starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, watch Facebook Live with Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi. You can't miss him. We'll also stream the address and provide analysis following the president's speech. President Trump calls the failure of a bill banning abortion after 20 weeks disappointing. The president says, "We must defend those who cannot defend themselves. I urge the Senate to reconsider its decision and pass legislation that will celebrate, cherish, and protect life." The vote on the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, which was co-sponsored by Senator Lindsey Graham, was 51-46, short of the 60-vote threshold.
This issue will continue to come up, and it should, because we as a culture should promote a culture of life and of honoring people at their most vulnerable moment, and there's not a more vulnerable moment than that for that child.
Similar legislation failed in 2013, 2015 under former President Barack Obama. Several states have laws restricting abortion. Opponents argue 20-week abortion bans are unconstitutional. California's state Senate approves a bill requiring public universities to offer abortion-inducing medication. None of the state's 34 campuses currently offers abortion services. If signed into law, a group of donors says it will pay $20 million in startup costs. Turkish troops and their allies retake 2 villages previously held by opposition Kurdish forces. A group of about 20 Turkish-backed Syrian fighters with pickup trucks mounted with machine guns aims to take control of nearby hills and mountains. But the skirmishes are coming with a cost. On Sunday, Syria's state-run news agency reported Turkey is accused of destroying religious and archaeological sites near the fighting.
Una salutación especial por el Papa y aprí que lui entre en defesa visita Chile.
An agency monitoring jihadi website says a video released by al-Qaeda's Mali branch shows a Catholic nun held captive for nearly a year. Sister Gloria Cecilia Narvis Argoti is a Colombian missionary. Church leaders reportedly say the video is confirmation she's still alive. Pope Francis sends a top sexual abuse investigator to probe Bishop Juan Barros in Chile, just days after defending him. Barros is accused of covering up an abuse scandal involving a priest.
The Pope has decided to send Archbishop Charles Scicluna to Chile to listen to all those who want to give testimony concerning the case of Bishop Barros. Archbishop Scicluna is one of the biggest experts in the church on child sex abuse.
The Vatican says in a statement it made the decision after receiving new information in the case. Coming up, continuing coverage of tonight's State of the Union address. Matt Schlapp joins us with what he expects from tonight's address. The State of the Union address allows the president the opportunity to shine a spotlight on his successes and plans for the future. But in today's fractured political climate, will Congress and the American people be open to his message? Joining us now, Matt Schlapp, chairman of the American Conservative Union and a Washington insider. Matt, thanks for coming back to the show.
Great to be with you, Lauren.
You were just at the White House. What's the mood over there right now?
I think they feel like they had one of the most consequential first years of a presidency we've really ever seen. All the press, all the criticizing, they ended up repealing the big part of Obamacare, which is the individual mandate, the tax cuts, put that in combination with what's happened with the president's actions and congressional action on regulatory relief. The economy is growing.
GDP's up,
yes.
Jobs are up.
That's right. So I think they're feeling pretty good about things on the important things.
Now, the president is expected to strike a unifying tone. Is that even possible right now? Will it alienate his base?
Well, I think it would be a mistake if out of nowhere he walked into the chamber and used all new language. The president is taking on Washington. He's taking on entrenched interests. And when you do that, there are consequences. But I do think he can unify the country to the purpose of continuing to get our economy rolling, getting government off the necks of entrepreneurs, letting individual families feel like they have greater economic prospects, and making sure that overseas and across the globe that America is respected. That's something the American people can get behind. His rhetoric and who he is isn't going to change. At least I hope it doesn't change, because a lot of people like what he does. And the question is, can Americans start to realize what he's doing is helping them?
Well, the unification piece is very interesting, because at the lunch today, he said that it would be wonderful if he could unify the country. I'm paraphrasing here.
Yeah.
But you've been in Washington a long time. Has there ever been a speech that unifies the country?
I went to the National Cathedral right after 9/11. I felt like that was a time when the country really pulled together. I think the country still has the ability to pull together, but our political leaders seem to be interested only in really marginalizing their opponents, and I think that's unfortunate.
I have to talk to you about this 20-week abortion ban before we
Sure.
go. The Senate did not have enough votes yesterday to pass it. You need 60. I think we had 50. The Republicans had 51 votes. And the president actually came out and sent a tweet, I think it was,
Yes.
to the senators saying, hey, reconsider.
Right. Yeah.
Let's get this back on the books. Do you think he can change hearts and minds?
Yeah, because his heart and his mind was changed. And it's happening all over the country. You can see it with the next generation, the rising generation, that the pro-life message is actually winning. And it's winning over politicians because their constituents are educated on when life begins. It's really not very radical to say late in pregnancy that there should be protections for that unborn child. We're winning this argument, and we're winning this argument because truth is on our side.
1 in 7 countries right now have that happening.
That's right.
7 countries, North Korea is one of them, we're one of them.
That's right.
And
no, the most extreme regimes on the globe have similar abortion policies than in the United States of America. We can do much better than we've done on protecting unborn life.
All right, Matt Schlapp, could talk to you forever. Thank
Thanks,
you so
Lauren.
much, Chairman of the American Conservative Union. Up next, the state of the Catholic Church in China and what the Vatican is saying. And a ticket typo, the misspelling on some State of the Union tickets, and what's being done to fix it.
Non mi stanco di ripetere che l'indifferenza è un virus.
Speaking Monday at a conference on anti-Semitism, Pope Francis says we must fight hatred and the, quote, virus of indifference that threatens to erase the memory of the Holocaust. A retired cardinal accuses the Vatican of replacing 2 church-approved bishops in China with ones favored by the government. Cardinal Joseph Zen, the retired bishop of Hong Kong, says he delivered a letter to the Pope earlier this month asking the Holy See to reconsider. He also says Francis agreed, suggesting the Pope was out of the loop on negotiations. The Vatican calls those claims, quote, surprising and regrettable, saying in a statement the Holy Father is faithfully informed about issues regarding improved relations with China. The Archdiocese of Chicago has little love for Valentine's Day this year. The romantic February 14th occasion falls on the same day as Ash Wednesday. And the church says fasting and abstinence from meat is far more important, saying, quote, In view of the significance of Ash Wednesday, the obligation of fast and abstinence must naturally be the priority in the Catholic community. For more Catholic news, including a story on a program aiming to help children learn and defend the faith as they get older, visit CatholicNewsAgency.com. A big oops on some tickets to tonight's State of the Union address. The tickets are issued by the Office of the Sergeant at Arms and Doorkeeper, and they say State of the Union with an M, as in Mary. It's unclear how many of the tickets printed had typos, but all affected tickets have been reprinted and redistributed before tonight's speech. Just a reminder, join us at 7:30 Eastern tonight for a Facebook Live event. We'll have a preview of the State of the Union speech and analysis afterward. Just head to the EWTN News Nightly Facebook page. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, thank you for watching. I'm Lauren Ashburn. We'll be back tomorrow with State of the Union analysis from a Catholic perspective. Good night, and God bless you.